It's time for Rabbi Minkowicz's Weekly Torah Lesson, a place where life's most difficult questions are answered. Here with his spiritual perspective and insight, Rabbi Minkowicz.
Welcome to this week's Torah lesson. This week's Torah portion is Parsha's Vayeira. The question of the week is, what is the purpose of doing a mitzvah when you're not in the mood? So in this week's Torah portion, Parsha's Vayeira, we learn about Abraham, who after he made his treaty with Avimelech, so it says that Abraham went ahead and Bayita Eshel. He planted an Eshel. Rashi tells us two opinions. One opinion was that he planted an orchard that produced produce. And then it says, Vayikra Sham B'Shem Hashem Keil Olam, that he called in the name of God. In other words, and Rashi explains, only he called in the name of God. That means he inspired other people to call in the name of the God. Now, why does it say both things in the same verse? That he planted an orchard and he inspired other people to call in the name of God. So Rashi explains that because he planted the orchard, so he had produce, so he used that produce to feed people. Avram had a guest house, he invited people to his house and he fed them. And by feeding them, he caused them to call out to God and to thank God. How did he do that? So Rashi says, very simple. Abraham is the exclusive hotel in the desert, no other hotel out there. The only one that can provide people with food, so they would come to him. He would feed them with his tremendous abundance. And then when they finished, he would tell them, thank God. He's the one that created everything. And they said, no, we don't believe in God. We'll pay you. He says, really, you want to pay? And he give them this huge bill. So they said, hey, the bill's too big. He said, no problem. You can choose. You can either pay or you can pray. And they naturally chose to pray, and they thanked God rather than paying the bill. So the Rebbe asked a simple question. These people had no interest in God. They had no interest in thanking God or praying. So the only reason why they were praying and thanking God was to avoid paying the bill. So they really don't care about God. They have no interest in God. And the whole purpose was not to pay the bill. So what did Abraham gain by asking them to pray? He didn't accomplish anything. And the Rebbe explains a fascinating insight, and he says like this. The truth is that inherent in every single person is a love for God, an acknowledgement for God, for everything that God created in the world. We're all internally connected with God. The part of us that says, I don't want to pray, I want to pay, don't bother me with God, is not the real self. It's the external self. It's called the Ra, it's called the shell that covers over who we really are. So in other words, what was Abraham doing? Abraham was doing one thing. He was breaking that outer part and reaching into their inner part, and the inner part did want to pray to God and thank God. So in other words, what is the purpose of praying and thanking God when you're not in the mood? The purpose is because that is who you really are. The fact that you don't want to, that's your external self. And just to finish off, there's a story with the Rebbe Rashab that once a Chassid came for a specific need and presented his need to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe said, I'm sorry, I can't help you. This is what you're asking for, there's no way I can give you a blessing for it. So the Chassid felt very, very bad and walked out of the Rebbe's room and broke out into a sobbing tear and cried for a long period of time. And when they finished crying, he came back to her and said, Rebbe, you think maybe you can bless me? And the Rebbe says, yes, I can. So they asked a simple question. What happened what happened all of a sudden the Rebbe found the blessing before he couldn't, now he could? And they explained that very simple. Before, when the Chassid came to the Rebbe, he had no relationship with God. So therefore, how can he give him a blessing? But once he realized, oh my gosh, he can't get anything, so then he developed naturally by his crying, he turned to God. And once he turned to God, then he was able to give him the blessing that he needed. So in other words, the Rebbe, by not blessing him, not because he didn't want to, because there was no blessing, because the external was covering the internal, and by allowing him to break off the external disconnect, he was able to recreate that internal connection with God. So to answer the question, what is the purpose when you're praying and doing a mitzvah if you're not in the mood? It's because that's who you really are. This week's Torah lesson is dedicated to the memory of Baruch ben Aryeh Leib and Shlomo Ben Yosef. May their souls be elevated by the Torah we're studying in their memory. Thanks so much for joining us for our weekly Torah lesson. For more information about Chabad, please visit our website.